I mean, there's multiple avenues we can take that I think would be really interesting to talk about, like what that looked like in your marriage then, in your first marriage, and like how that affected that. And then like you've got a new marriage now, and like Helen and you, I'm sure you've talked about these things, and it's like, how does that impact this relationship? How do you like combat it? You know, because it's constantly, like you say, just kind of a battle, but you're 2 years free right now. And so like, I'd be interested to go down kind of that avenue of how it impacted your marriages both.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a really weird thing with porn use is how we lie to ourselves and say it's not hurting anyone else. It's easier to lie to yourself about that. I think there's a lot of evidence that shows that the porn industry and sex trafficking are involved. And I think it rots us from the inside. So even though we think we're not hurting anyone, we're hurting ourselves. And then all the people that are involved with it. It gets hard to avoid that when you get married to somebody, because especially in the context of a marriage, like sexual intimacy is this treasured thing that's only supposed to be for the two of you. And so even if you are using porn for a very variety of reasons, it is picking something over your spouse, which is not great.
Yeah.
And a pretty big breach of trust. When it all kind of comes out of nowhere, it really hits like a bomb. So with my first wife, she had her own kind of history of issues. And so me kind of breaking her trust ignited a lot of that. I think that's what made her decide to leave. She just couldn't come to forgive me and just felt like that was it. Just, I can't say much more than that. But I got it from the sense of like, oh man, I really dropped this bomb on her because I didn't even know my problem was this bad. It took me like relapsing inside of marriage to be like, oh, okay, like nothing that I've done will fix me. I must I have a problem. Like I can tell now finally after years of ignoring that I had a problem, like, oh, it's definitely there.
Yeah.
Versus it's way easier with Helen of like being someone who is pursuing health and trying to understand my brain and what makes me to go to her like when we were engaged and be like, hey, like this is a thing for me. Like this is part of my life. If you don't want to get married to me, that's cool. Because of this is like a sin pattern, like because I'm an addict. I don't think most addicts, I would hope folks that are in recovery, like would tell that to their significant other, because whether or not you look at porn or do drugs or drink alcohol, like that's a big breach of trust. And it's a lot for your spouse to wrangle with. So it was nice to be on the front end to be able to talk to her about it. Obviously when relapses happen, they're always hard. They're way harder on your wife than they are on you.
How would you suggest to handle that? Like that conversation, like I know there's probably a lot of guys out there who like struggle with this in their relationship in a marriage, and like would you go about it? How did you go about it? And what would you suggest to men, like through what you understand, like to handle it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things you can do to help yourself is to have guys around you who your sin doesn't directly affect, because they will be the best sounding board to practice these sorts of conversations and talk about. So like I've got my best friend. He was the best man at my wedding. We've been known each other for years. I love my wife a lot, but if something happens bad to me, he's the first guy I'm calling. Because from one guy to another, I can tell him like your main instinct is going to be to cover your sin. Like I think that happens for anyone, especially for addicts, especially like for me who struggles so much with shame. Yeah. It's like my goal is to like, I want to make me look as good as possible, even though I've done something bad. And so if I talk to Helen straight away, even if she is the best woman in the world, who's just asking genuine questions, my brain is going to read that as she's trying to find something bad that I've done so I can be in trouble. Which that's like nothing on her. That's all my sin and my, like the devil lying to me. Right. But I'm like, I don't think I can handle that in that situation. I've learned enough about myself and been in enough of those situations. It's like, I'm not strong enough to handle that. So what I need to do is call my buddy, who I can say, hey, this is exactly what happened, like blah, 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 blah. And I know I need to tell Helen, but I just had to tell you first because I know with my buddy, he is going to say he loves me, like no matter what, because he and I have both had a lot of struggles and we both shared a time with each other. And it's like, there's just no judgment there. I mean, there is judgment in the sense of you want guys that care about your Christian heart and say, you don't need to do that. Like, how can we help you stay better than that? Right.
It's like a constructive kind of judgment.
But not a like dunk on you, you suck judgment. Right. And not that Helen gives me that anyway, which is why she's a wonderful wife and is very gracious to me. But it's super essential for me to have that group, that guy. And then I've got a couple other guys too that I will ping those things off of. Or like if I'm really struggling, sometimes it's tough to talk to Helen about it. If it's not like hey, I'm close to relapsing, but I'm just thinking about these things more. Because sometimes like if you are married to someone who's not an addict, they don't quite get it. Right. which is great. Like I'm super happy that other people's brains aren't like mine, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just I'm on the hook for dopamine, and if I find something that's a little drip, like I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Even if I know I shouldn't. I think all humans struggle with that, but I think for addicts it's a little tougher. So it's good to have people that have been down that same road. And so just like I can talk to some guys that I was in a group with years ago, and they're just like, I get it, totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they can help you make a better plan.
Yeah.
And then you go to your wife. I think all the guys I've counseled in areas like this, like if I could plan the perfect like confession of sin to someone, either a group of people you love really closely or your spouse, usually it's a spouse because that's where this, the rubber meets the road with this. It would be like, you don't want it to come out in bits and pieces, like, because it's breaking trust and you want to just get it all out in one go. So it's best if you can talk to people beforehand and like think about what you've done and try to structure it in the best way. Not because you're trying to lie or make yourself look the best, but because you've worked through it with some people and have a plan to try to change your life for the better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Just important to have like men in your circle to be able to like go to, and they can like accept like the flaw that you're bringing to them and like not sugarcoat like the judgment of like, it's bad, but it's like, I'll be there to like support you and help you in any way that I can to like get you through that. I think that's really important for men to have that to like fall onto. And, like I know some men probably don't have that, and they're in this situation. Is there any pointers that you could give to men? Like if you didn't have that buddy, like would you suggest like maybe go find that buddy, or like maybe like what could you do in that situation if you didn't have somebody to fall onto? Yeah,
absolutely. There's a couple of good options, like things that were really helpful for me for healing as I was piecing things together, that I think would be good for anyone. First, if you don't have anyone that like the places I went to, one, I had friends, so I was always able to lean on them, but sometimes it's good to have people that you don't know. Big fan of counseling. Like I would say definitely for Christians, it would be good to see a Christian counselor. I've seen counselors on both the secular and Christian point of view. It makes more sense to be talking to a counselor who's from your same worldview, because they can help you kind of feel some stuff. Like, especially talking about pornography. Like some secular counselors are like, pornography's fine, and so it's not going to work well if I think this is a problem in my life and they don't think it's a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Counseling is good because you pay someone money to sit across the room from you, and you can just tell them anything, and they're not going to tell anyone. So that's great. Yeah. And so if it's like I don't have a friend I can tell because I'm worried my friends are all like, or something may happen and it disrupts my friend group or whatever. Like just go see this other person, and you give them money, and they say cool, and they'll give you some advice, and it's great. And so if they're a Christian counselor, they should be forming that out of the gospel, which is kind of the key. Is just, not just how do we change your behavior, but how do we change your heart? Yeah. So that's great. There are also a bunch of anonymous groups. Like there's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Sexaholics Anonymous, which is SA. There's Samson and the Pirate Gangs is another group of like anonymous people. And then there's NA. Like obviously it's best to go to a anonymous group that fits with your addiction, but if there's not one for your specific thing, like I think it's good to just go to any of them. I spent probably 2 years going through the steps and meeting with people. I've since life's changed and I've gotten busier, and so I haven't stayed plugged in with a sponsor and things like that, as I've kind of built my own support network. Yeah. But it was super great to get together with people, like, because it's anonymous, and some of the folks in there like have way more impactful stories than me, just in the sense of like the things they've done and how good God has been to them. It's the most humbling room I've ever been in, is to hang out with a bunch of people who are all in the same boat of like, I'm an addict and I'm real broken and I'm here because I want to be better. Yeah. And so some of that's really awkward when it's with people and trying to break down those barriers between people. But an anonymous group, everybody is there. The folks that have been there for a long time, like they do a very good job leading the way of like, we're just throwing off our load and talking with each other. Like, set everything down outside the door and come in and just bare your soul. And it's really good. So if you don't have anyone to talk to, I would find a group. Groups are great. Counselors are great. But obviously having friends that are near you and know you is ideal.
All right, so I don't love doing this, but I realize the importance of it as a YouTuber now, so I'm going to throw it all out there. First off, if you like the video, if you put an actual like on it, it actually shoots it out into the algorithm, so other guys who are looking for this kind of content like you, it will show up in their feeds as well. Also, sharing the video to guys that you think would be interested in it, and also doing little things like commenting. Commenting is actually a big one. If you just throw something in there like, I got value from this episode, that does a ton. in regards of like getting YouTube to notice it and put it onto the algorithm for other men who are searching for this kind of content. Also, just for you, if you want to see more of this content and you want to be notified, you can subscribe, and that'll make sure that it's constantly in your own feed and you can see up to date. We're planning to do about 1 episode per month. That's the rate we're doing it right now. And then we're doing shorts and clips in between that time. So you get a little bit of that to hold you over until the next episode. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, all of those do a ton to boost the video and get it to other people who are looking for this too. And also, the biggest thing you can do is just pray for me and pray for the podcast. That would be the greatest impact that you can have. So thank you very much.